Welcome to this issue of Cool Tool Show and Tell. Our special guest this week is Dan Goods. Dan, would you like to introduce yourself to our watchers and listeners?
Hey, yeah, great. Thank you so much for inviting me. Dan Goods, and I have an art and design background, and so I'm sort of a creative director working on various kinds of projects around the world. During the day, I work at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, where I lead a team of artists and designers, and then I also do art and design projects outside of JPL.
Well, really welcome. Thank you for your work at NASA. That's really fantastic. And I know as a maker and artist, you have some cool stuff for us. So, Dan, what's your first tool you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, I've some things are super low tech, but one of my favorite things is gaffer tape. I'm a fan of tape. And so I like blue tape, and I like certain kinds of glossy tape, and there's all sorts of different kinds. But gaffer tape, if you've never used it before, a lot of people in the film and TV industry use it, but I use it a lot as well. It's it's a little it has a lot of heft to it, but you can cut kind of pull it in little pieces, and you can actually really get down to like little teeny tiny pieces, which is really nice. But the benefit of this tape is that it doesn't leave a residue, at least if you don't leave it forever, right? So if you are only going to leave it for a little while, a lot of times when I'm doing an installation, I need to mark it out. I need to like get a sense of how big this space is going to be, where you might stand, where you might have difficulties, and I lay this stuff down all the time. And what's great is it comes in lots of different colors, and widths. So you got different colors. Some of them glow in the dark, and I don't know. It's just like this multi-purpose thing that I use for all sorts of stuff. Whether I'm trying to get things to fit together, or I'm marking things down on the ground. Gaffer tape. It's just like it's the thing that I'm always grabbing for.
Right, and the distinction between gaffer tape and duct tape is that duct tape is usually meant to be a little bit more permanent, and gaffer tape is something that is seen as being picked up. It could be a week or more. It'll be very, very secure, but the idea is that it is only temporary.
Yeah,
and that's how the gaffers would use it in Hollywood. It came from the lighting sector of a set where people were putting down taping wires and other things temporarily. But it's good, it's sticky enough that you can kind of most.
It has a heft to it that you can do most things with it. But if you're going to use duct tape, you just better assume that the thing is destroyed. And if you ever want to take it off, or you just can't take it off, right? Or if you do take it off, it's going to be all gooey, or it's going to be a mess. And this stuff, it just kind of lays down, and then you take it off, and it doesn't leave any residue. And so I don't have any problems putting it up on walls or other kinds of places. A little trick that I learned from another artist was to put, if I didn't want to ruin like a painted wall, is that I'd put down blue tape, because blue tape is like painter tape. That's what you get at like Home Depot or someplace like that. And then I would lay the gaffer tape over the top, because the gaffer tape is a little bit heftier than the blue tape. But that way you have a little bit of layering, and then it's really easy on the walls. So little trick that I learned along the way.
That's really great. Gaffer tape. And it comes in different widths, different colors, as you say.
Yeah. So you can get it in like 2 inches. It could be really big, or it could be really thin.
And it has kind of a matte cloth, my recollection. A little cloth feel.
If you go to events, you'll see it on the ground. Sort of they'll use something about this width that will cover up wires. So you don't kick it, and you don't need a big giant rubber thingy on the ground to keep people from hurting themselves. Well,
great. So gaffer tape. Okay, that's a great tool.
Yeah.
So what would be a second one?
So this one's super simple, but I've used a lot of rulers in my life, and I didn't understand the difference between them, because a lot of times I'm trying to cut something, and like if you're not like really into rulers and X-Acto blades and all that sort of stuff, you just kind of grab whatever, right? And a lot of times you have the like a metal ruler with the cork on the bottom, right? But if you're trying to cut a straight line, you got to be really careful because that ruler might flip, right? And then you're like all over the place and you might hurt yourself. And now I hadn't thought about this when I bought it, but I have a few different ones of this particular. Let's see if I get my eyes out of the way.
Focus on that.
There we go. Yeah, there we go.
Alumicutter. Okay.
And what I didn't understand until I don't know if you can see, but I have I have a scar. And so this is why I've remembered this. And every time I see someone cutting with an exact or with a ruler, I'm like, watch out! You got to get one of these because one side is really thin, and the other side is thicker. And I'm gonna kind of so you'd be able to do that. And so what you do is, and they actually have like a nice smooth spot there for you to hold your finger, and then you cut on the thick side. Now, I wasn't smart enough when I was first using it, and I used the thin side, and the X-Acto blade just like jumped up and gave me this lifelong scar, but a remembrance of the way I should use the tool. And so I absolutely love this set of rulers. They come in lots of different lengths, and they have a really nice, it's not cork, it's like a felt that's on the back, which doesn't leave residue and other types of stuff when you're trying to cut something that you really care about, right? And then just this other side that one side is thick and one side is super thin, and it's really lightweight. And I know it's super low tech, but I love this ruler. So
the idea is that the higher, thicker side prevents your blade from jumping up and off track. You can kind of keep on track a little bit. And
just the way, I don't know, just the way that the numbers are put on here, let's see, hopefully it's going to pop. I tested this beforehand and it worked really well. And then of course now it's not going to do it. But anyways, the way the numbers they're silk screened on here. Sometimes if they actually engrave it, sometimes in different light, it's hard to tell exactly where the measurement is. And so these are silk screened on there, which is really nice. And they go down to like a 32nd of an inch, which is really great too. So,
is that the brand Alumi?
Yeah, I guess Alumicutter.
Alumicutter
from Alumicolor. And so this is Alumicutter from Alumicolor. So I guess the big company is Alumicolor and the product is Alumicutter. So I don't know about any of their other products, but that worked out for me.
I'm presuming they come look at 4 foot or whatever.
Yeah. Which is the one that I was using when I got my remembrance.
Right.
Yeah,
a 4 foot ruler and cutter is very invaluable in almost any studio. So it's a great tip. Okay, well, thank you for that second one. How about a third one, Dan?
Yeah, so this is a thinking tool, and I went to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, and I had this legendary instructor, Lou Danziger, and I remember him mentioning this, and I didn't think much of it at the time, but I've used it the rest of my life, and every time I bring it up in teams, they're like, that's a really good idea. And so just think back to, if you had a stereo in the 80s, you had a dials, right? You had dials, or you had like you could push it back and forth, right?
Slider.
A slider, thank you. And so simple idea is whenever you're talking about any type of idea or product or project or anything, you think of it on the scale of a dial. And so like, if someone says, I'm going to say, we should do something in this fashion. You don't necessarily have a sense of where that is on the scale of ideas. And I think we immediately go to whatever happens to be in our head, right? And what's in my head is different than what's in your head. And what's really important when you're trying to communicate is making sure that what's in my head is in your head, right? And so I notice a lot of times if you just say, here's an idea, people don't have any reference for it, and they either like it or they don't like it, or they go off on some tangent. And what I've started to do, and what he was suggesting, is just put it on a dial or on a slider, where is it on that? So is it a crazy idea, or is it a really conservative idea? And is it like 50%? Is it 30%? Is it 70%? Is it 95%? And then you can say, well, let's go with a crazier idea, or let's go with a more conservative idea. Or, it needs to be louder, it needs to be softer, it needs to feel, it needs to have more feeling to it, or it needs to have more, intellectual rigor to it. And where is it on that dial? And I swear we use it all the time now. And it's just one of those things that, if he hadn't said that in my life, I think I would have gotten lots, there would have been a lot more confusion. And super simple, but super meaningful, at least for me in my work.
And on the dial, the axiom or the dimension that you're usually referencing is more plausibility or realism.
It could be anything. It could be anything. And that's what's so great about it, right? Is you just put your own, axes on it, right? Or, the high or the low. And so it could be more expensive, less expensive. It could be, brighter, it could be dimmer, it could be, it hurts or it doesn't hurt, right? And, like if you go to a doctor and you say it's a scale of 1 to 10 or something like that, it's just a different way of thinking about a scale, right?
So the idea is that you want to have some kind of scales attributed to the idea. Whatever the dimensions are, you want to put them on a scale, and that scaling helps it be specific or realer.
Yeah, well, it gives the other person a chance of saying, well, maybe we need more of it or less of it. I think maybe the way it comes into really helpful for me is that people will dismiss something, right? And if they don't have a sense of, context, and if you can give them a little bit, you can say, okay, well, how about this idea? But if it's on a scale of, if it's on the dial of, 0 to 10, and it's an 8, if we were on a 7, would that work? If we were on a 6, would that work? And then they might go, well, yeah, okay, I get it. Maybe if it was just dialed down a little bit in this area, then that makes it more palatable, or maybe you need to turn the dial up, right? And also, like if you're exploring ideas, it helps you go, well, is this all the way up? Is this should you do something that's more risky? Should you do something that's more conservative? And it just kind of helps with that.
Yeah, I like that. So it's what do you call it? Putting a dial or adding a dial?
Yeah, where's it on the dial?
Where's it on the dial?
Yeah.
Okay, just a question to ask when you're brainstorming or trying to design something. That's great. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a tool, definitely a tool.
Yes, thinking tool.
A thinking tool.
Yeah.
So Dan, how about your fourth tool?
Yeah, so the last one is something that I just absolutely love, and it's super simple to make. It's called a cloud chamber. And so what a cloud chamber is what you kind of need is like a fish tank. You get a fish tank, and then I get some felt, and I use a couple of magnets to get the felt onto the top of I guess it's the bottom of the fish tank. And then you put isopropyl alcohol. And so you need like 99% isopropyl alcohol. So if you go to your like Rite Aid or something like that, they usually have something that's more like 80 or 90%, but you really want 99%, and you can get that at Amazon or other places. And so you get isopropyl alcohol on this felt, and then you have a piece of metal like aluminum, and you put this on here, and then you put this whole thing on a piece of dry ice. And if you Google cloud chamber, there's 50 different ways of doing it. Some of them you can just use a little cup. Some of them are, other ways of doing it. But what's super amazing about it is that what happens is that it's warm up on top and it's really cold down below. And what happens is that alcohol kind of starts to come down, and it turns into a fog about 1 inch before it hits the plate. And that fog is special because particles from exploded stars that have been flying through space for millions or hundreds of millions or billions of years from a star that exploded far, far away are coming through you and I all the time, right? And what happens is that this particle called a muon will go through this fog, and it's sort of like the fog is trying to grab a hold of it, and it looks like a little streak. It looks like if you were to take if you were to shoot a bullet into a body of water, like a swimming pool or a lake or something like that, you see that, right? You see, I do better with sounds sometimes than I do with actual words, and so you'll see these little streaks, and they're just like flying through there all the time, and those are showing you not the actual muon, but it's showing you where it just went, right? It's leaving a wake. And to me, it just blows me away that you're able to see this stuff, that these things that are flying through you all day long, and there's millions and billions of them going through you, right, all day long, right? And you have no idea that it's there. And all you need is a fish tank and some dry ice and some isopropyl alcohol, and you're able to see it yourself. And so that's a tool that I show whenever I give talks. At the very end, I sort of talk about how there's that we have a precious moment in time, and how are we going to spend our precious moment in time? And then people can kind of come up and get a sense of, wow, this thing's been flying through space, but we just kind of got to see it right now, right? Mm-hmm. And anyway, so that's one of my favorite mind-blowing tools. And so please, I'll send you a little video of what it looks like when the streaks are going through. And hopefully you can, everyone will go find it on YouTube and make their own.
So going back to the making part, so do you need like a block of dry ice? Can you use pellets or?
Yeah, you can essentially you just need something super cold, right? Cold. And dry ice is probably the easiest way to do that. I have seen someone had it looked like a tuna fish can, and they had put saran wrap over the top, and then they put the isopropyl alcohol in there, and then they used like an air can, right? And sometimes that will get something super cold, and right. So I haven't personally tried that, but that is another way of doing it. But dry ice you can get at the grocery store, ice cream places. It's all over the place. You just have to be careful to wear gloves when you're doing it. So.
And on the particles themselves, are you? You say they're passing through us. So they're passing through us because they pass through matter, or because they haven't collided with a particular piece of matter in our body?
My understanding is that they're. Let's see. Well, I guess they don't. I'm not going to be able to. I don't want to act as if I know the answer to that. Right. But it's a subatomic particle, so it's really tiny, and I don't think it interacts with us.
Okay.
But it does. It does. There's something about the electrons are trying to grab from the isopropyl alcohol, are trying to grab a hold of it, and of course, my wife would probably say, "No, that's not right." So. so I'm getting a little deep in there.
All right.
Well, I do know that they are. I won't
press it, but somewhere there will be an explanation. But
yes,
that does sound like a really cool little experiment. And I have seen the mini versions of this available, which, as Dan suggests, you don't need very much equipment to show this. And it is remarkable because right now, as we speak, as you're sitting there, wherever you are, they're passing through you right now, and we're just not aware of it. So that's a great awareness, raising the awareness. So Dan, those are really great. Thank you for sharing those with us. What do you want to share with our audience? Are you working on anything right now, or do you have a project or a passion that you want to let us know about?
Yeah. I've been. This is something that has always been in the back of my mind, and I'm trying to bring it to the forefront of my mind. As we were talking a little bit earlier, have 3 kids and a full-time job, and always trying to figure out how do I get some of these passions out there. But So when you are alone, and if you like to sing, um, you hear everything about your voice, right? You hear if it's in key or not, if it's breaking or cracking or whatever. So you hear like every element. But when you get into a group of people, and I'll call it a breaking point. There's a breaking point at some point, whether it's 30 or 50 or some amount of people, that all of a sudden it doesn't matter exactly what you sound like. Everyone together all of a sudden starts to sound good somehow, right? And I've never understood that. That just seems really weird. Like, why does that happen? And then I was at a concert at the Rose Bowl, and there was 92,000 people there, and it was U2. It was a U2 concert, and everyone is like singing, and holy cow! It felt spiritual, right? Like it was something different. It was way different than myself. It was way different than 50 or 100 or a couple hundred people. 92,000 people. It was just totally different, and so I was trying to think, well, if those are two different breaking points, is there another breaking point out there? Like, what would the next breaking point be? And so I'm just like picking a million. What if I could sing or listen to a million people singing? And there's a number of these different virtual choirs where people sing into the computer, and so I love watching those. For like when I first saw the virtual choir, Eric Whitaker, it was so beautiful. You see all these people, and like, how did they make that happen? And from a video standpoint, it's super impressive, right? You see all these little boxes of people, and but from a sonic standpoint, you're listening to it out of your laptop, right? And it's not the same thing as listening to thousands and thousands of people singing. And so I've wondered, well, what could you do? Like if you had 10,000 speakers and there was 100 voices in each one, that's I don't know if 100 voices is too many to have into one thing, but I have a few different friends that are really good with this sort of sonic tool sets that they have, and so we're gonna start experimenting. And the cool thing about it is that if we had this structure that had, let's say, 10,000 speakers, and we invited everyone to sort of sing into the computer, we'd have some data, and we could ask, where do you live and how old are you, and some other things. And what would be super beautiful is you'd listen to these million people singing, but then you could hear only 15-year-old men in Africa singing, and only women that are 30 and above, only people that sing the key of G, only these, and you'd be able to listen to the same music, but with all these different sort of data sets. And then hopefully there'd be a moment where you could go in there and there'd be some, whether it's, Bluetooth or whatever, but the sculpture would know that you're there, and it would show you where you're singing, right? And then maybe you could just hear your voice for a moment. And so I've always thought this would be a beautiful thing to do at some sort of global event, whether it's, World Cup or the Olympics or, World Expo, where there's people from all over the world. And this really would want to be a global type of project. So you could really, I love the idea of lots of people doing something beautiful together. Yeah. So that's passion that I want to see come to fruition, and hopefully will.
In almost all the speeches that I do in the past couple of years, I've talked about the fact that our new tools will enable us eventually to have something where we have a million people do something together in real time. The idea of collaborating at the million level in real time is something we can't do, but we're going to figure out how to do that. And I think the idea of singing had not occurred to me, but that is a fantastic collaboration
let's figure it out.
Said that there's something weird that happens, weird and wonderful that happens in large groups. It doesn't happen when you're singing by yourself. or even small groups. And so if people wanted to either support you or be engaged in this in some ways or participate, is there a place for them to go? Have you set anything up?
So at this, so we have, so we're working on a prototype so that we could test, like 400 or 500 voices.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I suppose you could either, find me on my website. It's directedplay.com. If you just Google Dan Goods, you can find that. Or I'm on Instagram and Facebook and other types of things. And so, if I would have put all this together, I would have thought, oh, I should have had a whole website all devoted so that I could kick it off right here. But
that's okay. We'll put your contacts in the show notes. And,
awesome.
I think it'd also be kind of curious if you start to accumulate data, whether there is a quantitative difference that you could begin to notice, that you could deliberately then try to amplify, or whether or not, like bandwidth, at some point it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's possible too, right? I mean, could whatever that number might be, where we're incapable of noticing in some way.
Yeah. But I have a feeling it's past 100,000.
Okay.
At least that's what I'm hoping for.
Sure. Well, that's really great. Well, thank you again for this. And again, do you have a name for this phenomena or what this project is called?
Well, so we're actually going to try 3 different things. So in talking to various people, we've talked about singing, we've talked about humming, and we've also talked about cheering. So like the roar of the crowd. So if it ended up being that cheering was actually, like if we just recorded you for 15, 20 seconds, just giving your all, right? Like you're just like, like there's something cathartic about that, but it's also beautiful to cheer together, right? And especially at this moment in time, like, holy cow, we need something to cheer together about. And if it has nothing to do other than like getting people amped up that way, then there's something beautiful there. And so, because we've talked about, well, what song would you sing that is that everybody would know, and that's hard, right? And or if you hum, there's something just magical about humming and cheering. And so we're going to try all 3 of them and see which one seems to have the most power to it.
I like the global cheer idea. That's really cool. I wonder if you could actually figure out the timing of it so that the cheer would actually circumnavigate the globe. A single cheer around. So it'd be about 1,000, at the equator, 1,000 miles an hour, 500 miles an hour, which you could actually pace out. So you could get an app, and wherever you are, you would have the second to cheer, and then the cheer would just pass over and go around the world. Yeah.
It's like Hands Across America.
Yeah, right. The cheer across America.
Yeah.
Well, this is really great. Thank you for playing with us and sharing your cool tools. I greatly appreciate it. And best of luck on the global cheer.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Good thing. We're glad that you enjoyed this issue of the Cool Tools Show and Tell. Just want to remind you that we have some other coolish material on our YouTube channel here. Please subscribe, comment, like. In addition, this Cool Tools Show and Tell is also available in an Audible podcast form. You can subscribe to it wherever you subscribe to other podcasts if you just wanted to listen. And if you're listening, know that there is a visual version of this on our YouTube channel where we're actually showing the tools, and there's a little bit more of a visual component there. In addition, the same folks that put us, the Cool Tools website out, we also put out a free newsletter every week. It's very, very short. It's 1 page or less. We recommend 6 very brief items that are very succinct, easy to read. You can deal with it in a couple minutes. And every week we bring to you the 6 cool things that we have uncovered and want to share. And it's called Recommendo with 1M, recommendo.com. You'll be able to find it there. It's free. Join 50,000 plus other subscribers every Sunday morning. You'll get it in your email box. And it's actually one of the most popular things that we produce. But we do produce other newsletters as well. One of them is called What's in Your Bag. We have one that goes out to tools and tips for your workshop. So you can get those at our website, and they are also free. And finally, I want to mention the fact that we do have a Patreon, and this podcast and this vidcast are supported by Patreon supporters. The minimum is $1 a month. And for that, you get an email to ask us anything. We'll respond and answer your question if we're able to. There are other higher levels. You can all see those at our Patreon page. And all those links are below right here. So thank you again for being a fan. And we'll keep producing stuff if you enjoy it. Thanks. Thanks to this week's Patreons. They include Rachel Steele, Michael Lenardi, David Robson, Viro Patel, James Boismer, Daniel Cochran, Edge Cetra, Melissa Feldman, and Jeremy. Thank you all.